Hello, everybody. Welcome to Live Feature Rant. This is a Landmark and EverQuest Next talk show, and we have on today to the screen left is ChipGM. This is not your first time on this channel, but I believe your first time on this specific show. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okie dokie. Very cool. So we're gonna have you do a little introduction here in a moment, and then on the screen right, that's Adam. You folks know him. He's been coming back here. So Chip, what's up with you? What's your kind of background? Just a quick review, background, MMOs and games you played and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, I've been playing MMOs since Dreamcast system, playing Phantasy Star.
Yeah.
Then I went to I think it was City of Heroes. Oh, Star Wars Galaxy, City of Heroes, and WoW, and then probably like 30 other ones after that, and ended up with actually back at WoW again, and I came to Landmark.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I've tried many of them, and man, I'm a big MMO person. I play a lot of console stuff. I like a good mix of games, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't just stay with one all the time. I like to have a little bit of everything.
I gotcha.
But I am a streamer. I do stream Landmark, not as much as I was before. I do a lot of stuff for the community. Like if anyone wants me to show up for one of their events, I'll do that while I'm streaming. And that's about it for Landmark stuff right now. Hopefully when we get more combat and stuff, we'll see more.
Yeah. You used to do a swap meet, didn't you? For a little while?
Yes, I do. I do swap meets on Friday nights. If I don't have if I don't have another player's swap meet to go to, I do my swap meets on Friday nights. 9 o'clock Eastern is usually a starting time. It depends on where I'm going. Some people are different servers, or like different time zones, so I try to accommodate a little bit with them to make it work out. But I usually have it posted up on my Twitch page, and I will post it up on my stream page on Twitter too.
Gotcha.
Or Twitch and Twitter. Mix them
And
all
I do
up.
want to give you a kudos for being one of the swap meters and being good enough to make that available to people. I know there's a segment of the players who get their panties in a bunch over people sharing stuff, but I think it's really fantastic. So awesome.
Yeah, I think it is too. It's nice that a community actually comes together and helps a lot of newer players, and that's what it's about. The big builders ain't going to be using that stuff, but they'll actually bring over maybe that stuff they made in alpha or something and drop it off. And it helps the new guys out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've said on the show before. Is the stuff people gave away in alpha and beta is not they're going to get 500 times better since that item they made. That's not hurting anybody any way.
I really wish I could give people voxel-free versions. Back before the voxel vision system was implemented, we could make anything, do whatever, and it didn't really have the full ownership applied to it. Now, I got the full ring set, the small ring set and the big ring set, and those for the Kerran architecture are super, super important. But I can't give them to anybody and have them be able to use them without anything they cut and paste from those giving me credit. And I really, that's not fair. I want people to be able to, because I didn't make them, I just want to be able to give them away to people and have them be able to access it. They're not really going to be able to monetize it themselves. It's an item that's kind of common. You can't really sell it.
Yeah, that's the only thing. My swap meet ran out. I let my my maintenance run out. I forgot the name of it right now.
Upkeep.
But I let it run out. Upkeep. Let it run out when I was on vacation, and I didn't want to put my claim back down because of the voxel vision. I knew that most of the stuff would be in my name, and I didn't make it. And I don't want to take credit for what this person made or that person made, because I did not make it. But I had no choice, and I had to plop my swap down because I had nowhere to go, and I wanted that weekly swap for everybody to show up because people look forward to it.
Yeah.
And a couple of the people that actually made this stuff actually showed up, and they actually started switching out the stuff, including Tenma. He actually replaced a lot of the boards with brand new boards that had his name on it, and I told him to show up and do it because I want your name to be on it. I don't want to be taking credit for something that's not mine. And a few other players did the same thing.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to give us some way that we can give people more access to it. I'm sure a lot of people want to make things just to have it available. Like, yeah, here's a my template of a Kerran roof or a Kerran roof tile even. Go nuts, everybody. And some people do probably want to profit off of it, and maybe if people want to try to put their Kerran stuff on the market rather than submitting it to the contest, or maybe do both, you know, someone will get a slice of it for having made a unique piece that everybody else can, you know, utilize. But the option should be there. I agree. The open source version Petrie Plate was saying definitely be a good way to do it. So you know what? Before we get into the Kerran stuff, because that's probably going to dominate the episode, let's talk about the state of Landmark first, and the state of kind of what's going on. So that's definitely let's actually talk about the upkeep system. It's been a little while. It's been in for a little bit. It's definitely, you know, it's been a long time since I've seen a crap shack in Landmark. So the upkeep system did what it was supposed to do. But absolutely. I also don't see a lot of awesome claims that I used to in places, just because the people left, and, you know, we can't help them maintain their upkeep when they're gone. They have to physically log in.
Yeah, and if, you know, they're not logging in, they're not logging in. Yeah, there's been definitely a change in the landscape. I think there's a couple things going on, and I'm not citing anyone specifically. I want to make that clear right now, and I'm speaking in generalities. I'm not saying all of the, you know, the voxelmancers are like this, but there was a lot of grousing from some of the players, like after the first Landmarks of Landmark contest, and the variety of stuff they picked. Some folks didn't like that they picked builds that displayed more of a sense of humor as opposed to being, you know, deadly serious. Or I saw some people being upset that they didn't win, and then saying, you know, I made sure they knew it was named after me or my group or whatever, kind of implying that they expected favoritism because they had been around in alpha. And a lot, that obviously was not the criteria they used. And you're right. I think that there's a lot of, you know, clearly the focus right now is building. Clearly the focus right now is getting the players in a place where they can help them build next. And, you know, so we've seen it. We know there are folks who are like, there's no PvP, the game sucks. And, you know, that's coming. You know, so I think, you know, everyone's just kind of tapping out right now. And I suspect we'll see a lot of these folks come back. But you have definitely seen a lot of the more major streamers not streaming Landmark every night. They're moving on to playing other things on their streams. And, you know, it's just, I think that it's sort of the calm before the storm. You know, after, I think, SOE Live, there's going to be a ton of stuff dropped on us, you know?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so the upkeeps actually really did affect you, because you were saying it, you know, made you have to basically take down your swap meet and put it back up. I'm pretty sure it would have reverted to your ownership with Voxel Vision either way, whether or not it expired. But I can definitely understand the frustration of it having to go down and then people having to come back and you know, replace everything, at least that first time. But how do you feel about the upkeep system? Do you feel like it's still warranted to have it as long as it is? Should it be longer? Should it be shorter? Should it be something we can level up for having the claim around for longer?
Well, they did say that they're going to have it longer, and it's going to be, they said it's going to be based on how long you've actually played the game. So if you're in the game longer, you actually could buy off more upkeep time. You can actually pay off. And that is their big goal in the long run. Just right now, they have it set for 8 days. 8 days is, it's okay, but some people go on vacation, you're gone for 8 days. And you might forget to pay it off before you leave, and you don't got a computer. You're bumming. I mean, you're really bumming. That's what happened to me. I didn't realize until my vacation was almost over. I logged in. While I was on vacation, I knew it was going to be a really bad connection, but I wanted to get on to pay for it, and it was already too late. But it happens. It's not a big deal. Everything was still there. I dropped everything back down. They put it in your overflow, and it pulls out of your overflow for rebuilding. So it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I would like to see the upkeep getting boosted up sooner than later for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that actually lost their claim and they ain't come back for that reason. And I mean, that's kind of not a good reason not to come back, but I guarantee there's a lot of them that did do that. It ran out and they're like, whatever, and they moved on to another game, and they're going to come back later on when more content comes in. I mean, that was kind of like the last straw, you know.
Well, there's more to it than that. Like if your claim lapsed and you had a 2x2 claim, you don't get that back. We can't do the 2x2 claim still. It still only allows us to do an L shape. So if you had that before, you can't have that back. So that messes with a lot of people's builds. Also, the space that you might have had, that spot might be taken on every single server. So you can't specifically build it right back to the terrain you built it into. So, I mean, I could definitely see that, be a killer.
Yeah, I can see that being a problem. Someone did that rush and they got somewhere right next to the hub and they lost it.
Yeah.
And then I could see that being an issue.
It's interesting. I've lucked out. I've lost my claim twice just by spacing out, and shit, I forgot to log in on Sunday, kind of a thing. And I usually log in every couple of days. I just don't always think to check my upkeep, And I've been lucky, though. I've been able to reset myself back in the same spot. So it hasn't been too bad of an issue. But yeah, when the game goes live, we're going to be able to earn extended time. So the 8 days is going to be a huge deal.
Cadavari, really? I wasn't able to do a 2x2 claim for the longest time. Has it actually been brought back as a feature? Or is it just some way we have to trick it somehow to make it work? Because I have not been given that luxury.
Yeah. I couldn't do that when I dropped down my swap back down either.
Yeah, Malator is pointing out that when you lose your claim and the space is still available, you can't choose the exact same spot. So all this terror. I mean, in theory, you can, but it's so hard to line up that I was having a problem with that, where I had built something where I had kind of chopped out half of a hill and there was a doorway entrance into it. Trying to reset that, I eventually gave up. I was like, I'll put this back down at another time. I don't need it right now. But you're right. It is hard to get things right back where it was, and you're going to have to fix things. I actually used the opportunity the last time we had mentioned last week on the show that I noticed the sunrise and sunset were backwards and stuff. So when I originally built it, I built it kind of, what's north facing like north, for example. Mm-hmm. So when I redropped it, I turned it so it was facing, the sunset or the sunrise, I think, and was able to get a better view out of the window on the lower level and stuff. So, I was able to I was a little happier with that. But yeah, it didn't quite. I mean, I built it in a way where it wasn't super reliant on being exactly like the landscape, where I was able to kind of fit it back in and it still look okay. So I was pretty happy with that.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about that. Had to replace down the entire underground city. That took forever. Yeah, I bet.
Well, I think he's talking about not the two super claims next to each other. I think he's talking about an addition, a normal extra claim next to it. So,
okay, so we've talked that point to death. Now let's kind of move on a little bit, because there's kind of a lot with just the state of the game to really kind of consider right now. Let's kind of think about what's going on with the streams and the community. You kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, and we've really been noticing it. A lot of people that really love Landmark and are really excited about it, and even builders and people who, they'll do shows at least once a week, haven't been playing Landmark as much, myself included. Other than Castles and Crap Shacks, I come in and mess around every now and then. I've been working on a little bit of Kerran stuff, but it's really more of a sketch that I've made more than a, an actual representative structure. So I feel like the community is really just like we're waiting for the next feature, and there's a lot of awesome features that we've been waiting for that we've gotten. The roaming vectors we didn't necessarily know we wanted, but it was awesome. It's given us a lot of tools. The water we were waiting on for a while. Glass we were waiting on for a while. We got it. But then we wanted more with it, or being able to do other things. We're still waiting on glass voxels. I'm sure those will be coming pretty soon now that we've got water.
Really looking forward to glass voxels. That might actually get me building. I have some ideas. I do. I have some ideas for some nice, stuff that would be nice and abstract. You combine glass with light sources, and you can do all sorts of interesting things. That's for sure.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of good games. I mean, Petri plate, you're right. Like when you say the draw of summer, the first thing I think, well, what'd the summer kind of start with? Oh, the big old Steam summer sale. Well, everybody just bought up a whole bunch of games, and I've actually been seeing a lot of streamers playing a lot of those games, which is cool. I mean, nobody should be pigeonholed to just playing one game. Everyone should definitely go and play more stuff and play stuff they haven't played before, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking a break and going to play something else. There really isn't, you know.
Right.
And in SOE knows that. I think Davis said this about how the player base is very sticky and very loyal. And so while, yeah, they may burn through the content and take a break, they always come back. You know, they go play some other stuff, and then when there's new things to do or they're reinterested again, I do it all the time with their other games. I've been doing that for years and years and years and years. You know, I talk about that week after week. So it's not, I mean, it's not something to panic about. I know, like, I see folks, like, some folks are like PvP or bust, and I see some folks that, you know, no, the game needs PvE. Really, again, I stand by this. What the game needs is all the building tools in all of its forms, because that's the nature of the game. Like, that's what they want from the players, to be building the content and building the structures. And, you know, the adventure stuff is going to be the last thing that comes in. I'm almost positive.
It's going to be exciting. Actually, I don't think the adventuring's coming last. I think the ability to manage story bricks and make your own events.
Yeah, that will be last.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
The way he's been hitting, he might be getting combat at SOE. Some kind of combat.
Yeah.
In.
So I really, I think that's, Go ahead. I don't mean to step on you.
Oh no, that's going to bring a lot of people back. I mean, there's a lot of people and new people into the game, because now there's something more than just farming and building.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things I've said on past episodes, and I'm going to keep saying until it's what's going on. The stats part of the builds is really the part that I'm going to be focusing on. How each build comes together, how each different piece can be swapped out for something else, what the effect is, what it means in the grand scheme of things, the whole balance of everything. That's really going to be my big focus. I watch and play a lot of Binding of Isaac and Risk of Rain and a lot of roguelikes in general, where the way that you get from point A to point B, FTL is another one, the way you get through is the combination of items and equipment that you collect along the way. The difference here is this is our permanent arsenal. We don't lose these things when we die. We keep everything, and when we die, we know, okay, either this build works and I just need to play it better, or it doesn't work and I can swap things out to try to keep it going. Metallical, yeah.
Metallical saying, I've pretty much stopped building. The things I want to build are too tedious to build. The tedium of making what I consider simple shapes, anything curved, kills the enjoyment of building for me. I used to love it, but hope they improve the tools in a way that make it easier to do these tasks. Completely agree. That's why I haven't done a lot of fancy stuff. I mean, my build it's not ugly. It's very practical, but I did stick with using the basic rectangular shapes, and found a couple of materials that I thought went well together and left it at that. I didn't, I kept it pretty simple. I was very happy I built nice stairs that worked well. And that was a big move for me.
Yeah. Of course, now we also have a lot of really nice props. I was just watching on Castles and Crap Shacks. We visited, I think it was a countess in her beach house, and even though it's not using a lot of tricky voxelmancy and it's all really pretty simple techniques to build it, it looks really nice, and the props and the setting really put it together and make it work. So even though it kind of looks boxy from the outside, when you kind of think about a modern home, like maybe something built, maybe not modern, but something built anytime from, like, I don't know, the 30s to the 80s or the 90s even, it could go on a beach just the same in any of those settings. So I mean, but that's, while it's easy, it's possible to be creative with boxy stuff. People want to do creative things with curves and slopes and all sorts of weird angles. And honestly, I've said in the past, and I still want something where I can just sculpt voxels, where I can just look at them as vertexes and push and pull everything as I need to.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So
that's how Microsoft's game is. They came out with where you build your own worlds, kind of like the storybook book mode they want to do. I forgot the name of it now too. Spark, Project Spark, and that's how you build in that game. You just grab and pull things, and you shape things the way you want to shape it. And it's actually really easy to use for building wise. But still, Landmark is more of like the Minecraft. I mean that side, but just on a more high end version of it.
Yeah, Metallical, and there's like this debate in the community. Should we have a circle tool? Should we have some sort of curve tool that we can adjust that way? Should we have a 2D drawing system where we can put down Bezier handles and then or the tangent handles or whatever, and extrude out a piece to the shape that we desire? Voxel Vision probably killed a lot of the team builds. I disagree. A lot of the team builds, they know nobody's going to sell this stuff. The point isn't to try to sell it. And the other thing is, not every, you can't sell something that's in a team build unless everybody's got their tax information in. So there's also that limitation. Voxel Vision,
team builds is still there, especially for the contests.
Yeah.
I think that's where they're really going to shine.
Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing the monster builds competitions going on every week, and that's been awesome. I would say I haven't checked on it in a little while, but maybe about a month or so ago, Angel Bay was really kicking. That place was just going just ape shit. There's so many things, and then of course the mid-air devil slaying the angel thing or whatever, the evil angel slaying the other one, the blood spray everywhere, just kind of hanging out over the bay. That's totally awesome. That's just, that right there could have been a landmark of Landmark, and probably should be when they do the contest again.
I don't know if they'll put something like that in as a landmark though. That might be a little too edgy for them. They'll put the funny stuff in, but I don't know about the edgy stuff like that. I don't know if they'll do it.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, maybe.
And again, I see, folks are like, oh, the community's falling out, so there's no fun. I mean, that'll pick up, when the feature sets come in and when the game goes live, the great unwashed will show up, but they'll fall away, quickly, the people who aren't really interested in what the game is. But there'll be a lot of folks that come in, at that point that are just going to reinvigorate the community.
Yeah. I will say, though, when open beta itself actually hits, we'll already know what combat is. We'll already know what a good arena is. We'll already know what PvP and PvE is. So we're already going to... It's not like we're just learning about those things when it comes through. I think a lot of it's going to be this resource grab of all the veteran people who know what the hell's going on, leading the masses of people that don't, and trying to get all the resources to build up the equipment and stuff, so that way they're not just walking around in the noob gear anymore, because there is going to be that wipe, and the highest you're going to start is whatever the founder's pickaxe can get you up to, or otherwise the cobalt and that tier of stuff that you can get from the highest tier starter pack. But that's still not going to give you, it's not going to get you that far, especially if it gives you the tools that get you far down enough to find creatures that are just going to one-shot you.
Well, also remember, they've made it clear that we're going to have to unlock the recipes. We're going to have to find them out in the wild and stuff like that. So, it's not going to just be as easy as, whoo, I just stockpiled all the materials I need. Now let's just make the highest tier pick. Yeah. You're going to have to go find the recipe for the highest tier pick before you can make it. So, there's definitely going to be a whole nother level of adventure, quote unquote, added to the game when that happens. I think that's also why I'm not killing myself. Like if this was the live game on slow nights, I would probably log in and just mine stuff to make sure, I would be that guy who would max out every resource in my inventory just so I always had stuff. But because this is beta and I know we're going to get a wipe, I'm not doing that right now. So, things that I would do if the game was live, I'm not doing because the game isn't live.
Right. Like I honestly felt really stupid mining up 100,000 mithril with the old crappy version of the top tier pick, only for them to say, "Hey, everybody,
here's a really awesome upgrade system." Yeah.
No, not that. It was then to say, "Hey, everybody, you don't actually get to keep all of your materials because we realized closed beta is going to go so long that you're going to have unfair amounts of everything top tier. And now
Petri played saying that I believe this is in response to the recipe idea. He says, "I'm sure they will be available for station cache." No, they won't.
No, they won't.
SOE has never ever in the history of any of their games made their games pay to win.
Actually, PlanetSide 2 now has gotten that way.
That's different.
You can buy your certs now. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's like the adventure games, like EverQuest 2. I can speak to EverQuest 2 very particularly in DC.
I'd say DC, you don't buy your power, but you have to buy the expansions to unlock the privilege to access that gear.
And they'll do that. That's exactly the same thing in EverQuest 2. You got to buy the expansion in order to gain access to that content. But you can't just go to the shop and buy the best armor. You just can't go to the cash shop and buy your recipes, for crafting. You have to earn all that in game. The only things you can buy in the station cache store are you can buy convenience items like potions and things like that, and they're still not as good as what crafted stuff is, or it's appearance items. Maybe you can buy a backpack, but that's about it. They've never made it so that you can just buy your way to the top of the curve, right out of the gate like that.
Right.
Yeah, they said they weren't going to do that too. They said that's going to be a biggie. There's going to be no pay to win. It's all going to be cosmetic or stuff that you can craft already, like the potions or they could be gear and then different types of mounts because they're going to have mounts in the game. They already said. So they probably have a special one, like a special looking white horse. Ain't no better than this one, but just white.
The recipe isn't the item. You still need the mats, but you can buy the mats in the station cache store.
Yeah. Now that's something I'm wondering about is if we're going to have a deconstruct research system where you can find an item and learn to make the bottom tier version of it by breaking down the treasure chest version. There's still probably going to be a lot of things that we can't craft without finding like a recipe in the world, or the ones that might actually require that altar they talked about. You guys all remember the altar, right? The special thing when somebody accesses it is supposed to make a event in the world, tell everybody, hey, so-and-so found an altar, and then everyone makes a mad dash there with their top tier materials to try to craft themselves the more awesome stuff. Yeah, but they gotta find it. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think they said it's going to have like a 1 hour window on it or something like that, and it's going to respawn somewhere else in the world in the cave system, which is going to be massive when it's finished. Have fun finding it.
Yeah, seriously. So that's one of those things where you definitely have a lot of Hodor mount. That's funny. A lot of people that are going to be trying to work together. There's probably going to be entire like networks of crafters that just sit around trying to track each other's altars down or try to track down an altar. Then you squat on it until everybody's in position. Then you release it, and 1,000 people swarm upon it and craft their stuff.
I don't think that's going to happen much because those things that they can craft are going to be stuff that people are going to really want for like trading wise. Like, I'll trade you this rare crafted item if you give me 100,000 of that resource.
That's true.
And people will do it. People will do it if it's a rare schematic you can get or whatever, a blueprint. It's going to be that's going to be our trading system. It's going to be the stuff that people can craft and people that find in the treasure chests. The new thing they can craft that somebody else doesn't have, and that's where our economy is really going to be rolling. Not really the resources, but more of the items.
Well, I think all of it's gonna have an impact. If you want to be a player who does nothing but mine resources, because we've seen it, the builders are busy building. And right now there's a lot of folks who are working with them and donating materials and stuff like that. In the live game, you will see an economy come out of the game that is players who just want to mine and sell those materials to builders and crafters, and that's going to happen. You're going to see folks working with each other in the game, depending on what their interests are, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. There are definitely going to be people who try to be secretive about it, but there's only so secretive you can be when people can teleport to you using the friends list. And
that's true.
When they do, even if it teleports them to the very surface, you get 10 people going straight down with the pulverizers. You're going to get there quick. You're going to get there super fast. Or actually, I don't even know if that's the fastest, or if you have a few people with pulverizer and a few people with dynamite to kind of change up the rhythm and the size of things. But I haven't seen people use dynamite that much. The last time I used it a whole lot was when I was digging to the bottom of the world before they put the ocean down there. I haven't done that in a while.
I use it just to mess with people.
It's fun for that.
They stand there, I'll throw a couple pieces of dynamite to sink them. Then they put blocks over their heads, so they look up, and the blocks will be there when they come back. Where the hell am I?
And it's fun that we have that. There are some ways, it's not, there aren't ways to really like destroy a player's experience unless you actually give them builder privileges, but there's definitely things you can do to mess with players, especially out in the open world, or if they're on your build. I really like people taking some giant build like a big ship template and just, messing around with it in the caves. Obviously, you can't place it, so there's just this giant yellow or red ship flying around everywhere. This ghost ship-looking thing. It's hilarious. Yeah. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen people start doing, like, machinima stuff with ghosts and things that they're, flying around with the little paste template things in the caves.
Italical saying, I don't believe some of the travel methods we use today are going to be the same or around in the launch version of the game. He thinks quick travel is for testing purposes. I think quick travel will stay, but they will probably leave the timer long. I mean, they reduced it recently, right? It's like 15 minutes right now.
I don't know. The teleport to friend timer rather feels like somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour, because I was trying to use it on castles and crap shacks and it was taking forever.
Yeah, so I suspect that will probably stay. I know that we're supposed to get the ley line system at one point that'll allow us to travel from like a hub to hub to hub, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. They've also talked about having a fee to actually teleport from place to place. So it's either going to be using a portal shard probably, or if you don't have one of those, or if it's not something that uses that, just going from an island to island or server to server. They've said it might be a small currency fee. Now the currency we still haven't seen yet. We're dealing in copper ore still, and that's
right.
funny.
Some sort of a coin of some sort in the game at some point.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of that stuff, like that entire system, is what we're going to see at SOE Live. The combat, the looting of combat, and the crafting from combat materials, the currency system, currency for claims, currency for NPCs, shops, player shops, NPC shops. I don't know if we're actually going to have static NPC cities in the world. Pretty sure that's not going to be the case.
No,
but we might still have like traveling nomads. In fact, I'd love to have them put in just a band of traveling nomads. Maybe you can attack them, maybe you can't. But trading things with them that you can't trade with other people.
Yeah, that'd be cool. See them out in the middle of the woods while you're chopping a tree. See one rolling along. That'd be pretty cool.
It'd be one of those things that items that are destroyed and thrown away end up on them. So everyone that's throws away a stack of dirt or something to make room for an item, it ends up with them. Or you throw away a prop to make room for the stone that you're about to accumulate. You end up feeding them material. That could definitely be an interesting way to do it.
Well, they plan on doing that with the coin system, where you basically cash in all your resources, and they're saying that the resources are going to be tiered. Like copper, you're going to get the least amount of coin for. Then if you got like the mithril or the moonstone, that's going to give you the most coin, like stacks of it. So you're going to be able to get rid of all your resources that way with your wood and the whole 9 yards toward your coins used for your upkeep and maybe travel, maybe whatever else they're going to use it for.
Yeah. Empty center, shard of misdirection. That sounds like something Dave would make, where it, you're towards the bottom of the world, someone teleports to you, and it's like, okay, let's teleport them to the nearest fluid source. Hey, there's some magma. So teleport your buddy into magma instead of somewhere they can actually live and do things in the cave there. That would be fun. That would be hilarious.
He's coming. Watch. Here he comes.
Well, I thought that was funny how Dave talked about he likes to hang on a mountain.
Yeah.
Fall out of his backside.
It was pretty funny. When we get fall damage, that's going to be hilarious.
Oh, we're going to
Well, I had someone who, when I think I was doing a live stream, this is, 2 months ago, I think, and someone who was watching teleported to me while I was, Nero, you've seen my build. I have all the crafting stations pyramided up.
Yeah.
And I was on the second floor doing something at the crafting station. He spawned right on top of the iron forge and fell into it.
Nice.
And he's like, why can't I see anything? I'm like, you're in the forge.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said earlier the story bricks won't be in until much later. I don't know if it won't be until much later. We've already seen it implemented in H1Z1. I'm pretty sure they're starting to get ready. Now, story bricks in terms of it just being on the static mobs in the world and maybe even the weather system, that's one thing. Actually being able to craft the interactions of NPCs based on story bricks, that part I feel like is going to maybe come a little bit later and be one of those like that needs to be in before open beta starts sort of things.
It might not be. That might come in open beta, because they really don't need that right away to get into open beta. And in a way, they come kind of rushing. They have that time frame, and they kind of really holding to it, like trying to get things done. So I can see them launching the game before that gets implemented into the game, but not much longer afterwards. Because you got to figure everyone.
Disagree. Go ahead.
Either way, it won't hurt much. You figure if the game starts up, it's going to take you at least a month, if not longer, to get all your stuff, because the crafting system is going to be different. You're going to have to find all your schematics, so you have to do all this venturing anyway to get all this stuff. But half
the game is going to be you having to deal with mobs, you know,
yes.
like it, and I just because open beta is your soft launch, and they know that. I can't see them, because you only get, you know, we are unique in that we all bought in or won our way in to early access right now because we're invested for one reason or another. Open beta is not the time to ask people to be patient. You know, like when the game's out and you want to now have the general public come in, that's not the time when you say, oh, but give it another month. We're going to add that, you know, the MP. That does not go over well with the general audience.
Not the NPCs, more of the where we can craft our own dungeons. Something of that sort coming in later down the road. I can see that coming in after open beta. All the NPCs and mobs and all that has to be soon. It sounds like it's going to be pretty soon. It sounds like.
The voxel pathfinding is the thing that I am the most excited to see, or concerned to see, I should say. Because I've seen pathing in procedural games before, especially in structures that are not connected to the terrain itself, the procedural terrain. And they have trouble. They have a lot of trouble. It's a tough thing to do because it's so many overlapping systems to actually have that logic work and to have them be able to navigate. That's a pretty intense AI system at that point.
Well, look at Neverwinter. They've actually been doing that for a while, and that's the reason why Neverwinter is actually doing as good as it is because of the player content, of people making missions and the designing stuff. If it wasn't for the players, that game wouldn't even be here right now where people would be playing it. So people already have figured out how to fix all that stuff. You know that they're watching that because that's what they want to do. So they're probably watching Neverwinter really closely, like what people are doing, how they building stuff, you know?
Yeah. Petri Plate, no, actually, they might do rooted mobs initially, but I don't believe that's going to be the plan. I'm pretty sure they're going to have a lot of mobs that can run about the world freely. I bet they're probably even going to recycle mobs, the animals from H1Z1. They're realistic looking, so maybe they're not Disney enough, or maybe they actually will make more sense to look like that in Landmark and EverQuest Next. So they're not intelligent because they don't look all cute and cuddly.
I don't think they'll copy the stuff from H1Z1. They probably copy a lot of their code, but not like their stuff in the game, though.
Maybe the bear dance too. They just the bear dance they did last night. That was pretty funny. Yeah, H1Z1 pathing. I think it's the fact that they don't refresh the terrain layer every time and tell the AI where it can go. It's a little bit of a different situation with H1Z1 because they're not using a voxel world. You can't make a moat around yourself, or make a little pit that you can just make things fall straight into. I'm pretty sure creatures will actually path around those sorts of things, or otherwise maybe the pathing will be so weird that if this is the hole that I've dug, the creature just kind of goes down one way, sees that they're long enough to bridge across, and then they just come back up the other side. Be pretty funny. You'll see that in the screen in a moment. Drink. Yeah, Minecraft, but Minecraft is also a lot simpler. Like it's
it's all flat and 2D.
Yeah, to compare the pathing of Minecraft to the pathing of Landmark, you know, the voxels are so much smaller. It's
you know how many times I've gotten stuck on a tree stump?
Yeah.
And in theory, I'm smarter than the AI. In theory.
Kerran, the green trolley name, hard to read. I think you just followed the channel too. Thanks. Yeah, I think you're right. Since Storybricks was also on the blueprint at some point, it's not anymore. I think you're right about that. Yeah. So definitely that in combat will most likely be the SOE live reveals, and they might talk about a little bit of that stuff even at the open house thing, the block party on the 25th. But they've already said it's mostly going to be H1Z1 and PlanetSide 2 on PlayStation 4. So I don't expect too much to come out of that. I'm pretty sure they've been saving the big reveals for SOE live. Speaking of which, everybody, August 14th through 17th in Vegas, SOE Live. There might still be tickets available. Pretty sure the dev brunch is full. I'm surprised tickets haven't already sold out.
Yeah, I'm surprised too. Pack sells out in minutes.
It'll be showing at live. You got an email from Storybricks.
You got to be a diehard SOE fan in order to want to go to an event that's 3-4 days of nothing but SOE. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah. Saga and I were even talking about it. He's like, yeah, it's just going to be like college days. I'm just going to be going from place to place to place, just taking notes the entire time. You know, not going to be able to drink that much.
Oh, you could drink.
Well, no, he can, but, you know, being able to be functional, I don't know. It's up to the user, I suppose.
You know how many times I've helped people at PAX, doing PAX East and helping them do interviews and have the camera, and I'm drunk, and the next thing you know, I'm like, ooh-doo-doo, I'm looking over, hey, what's going on? And cameras everywhere. He's got to adjust it all and kind of clip it all to make it all work, and he's yelling at me. He goes, you know how bad you recorded that for me? I was drunk. I'm sorry.
That's pretty funny. Well, it happens. You know, you'll be drinking. Hell yeah, I found. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably at least get the half yard Arita and keep filling that up throughout the day. Sometimes with water, sometimes with booze. But those are kind of delicious and pretty easy to just keep on drinking. They're mostly ice and a little bit of sugar. Okay, so SOE Live, and on that note, is there anything else on the subject of the state of Landmark that you guys want to talk about before I start getting into these 4 pages of Kerran notes here?
I can't wait to find the golden throne in the game. That's it.
Me too, man.
That one's pretty awesome. The Landmark, I
begged Felgun. I'm like, please put that on my island. He's like, we're gonna put them where they fit. I'm like, you can make them.
The Landmark Vegas looking sign, I think, is one of my favorites, just because it's such a simple one. It's one of those ones where everyone who participated and everyone who thought about participating, you look at it and you slap yourself in the head and say, man, why didn't I think of that? That's so simple. That's so smart.
Yeah, I remember I ran into that. I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's such a great idea. It's not, you know, technically that difficult to execute, but they did it really well.
Yeah, it did. It did look very good.
Yeah. Okay. So, Kerrans, we learned so much from that. So if you didn't watch the workshop on today's episode, actually Landmark and Workshop, they didn't actually have Landmark live. People are out and people are busy and people are hard at work making the patch come through next week. So we got the art and lore folks coming through. We had Rosie Rappaport. We had Jeff Butler. We had Steve Denuser. We had the people looking at the aesthetic side of things there. So I violated 2 rules: IP and no words. Yeah, well, So much for rules, I guess, right?
It wasn't an IP violation.
I guess it wasn't.
I don't think that that's a trademarked sign, and I doubt it's an exact replica. Mm-hmm.
Though
let's face it, it was pretty goddamn clever. So
yeah,
I see why they let it through.
It could have been written in Japanese and looked that way, and I'm sure it still would have worked the same and passed as a landmark of landmark. So I'm not really buying the English. I mean, they definitely said no words, but any language they could have used there. They could have used Arabic and it would look just fine.
I'm sure that it was a case of they didn't want people, sticking their Twitch stream on the side of a statue. And, when they saw what people did with the Welcome to Landmark thing, it was like,
that's a good idea.
Well, that's clever. You got to let that slide,
Yeah. So, yeah, but I do agree that definitely the words definitely was a rule. They probably should have, I guess, annexed the rules at some point when they realized that was something they wanted, or maybe they'll adjust it for next time. This isn't the only landmarks of landmark they're gonna do. They've got a lot of islands to fill.
And let's face it, it's not like they have years and years and years of experience in interacting with the player base in building stuff like this. This is new for them too, so it's a learning process,
And it's completely different than the Player Studio stuff we've seen up to this point, which, by the way, I'm really happy with the Player Studio stuff. I'm really happy with that whole system, and I'm looking forward to seeing more with it. All right. So one of the first things that Steve said was about family structures for them. They differ from tribe. So that's one of the really cool things about Kerrans, and I think I might have said this on the pre-show, that I'm pretty much sold on the Kerrans as the race I'm going to play, because they have so much variation that's possible. Any player can basically start their own tribe, and that doesn't have to be the guild or whatever that form of unit that the players would be interfacing with, but they would have more of this like kind of role-playing thing that they're doing with their friends or whoever, and they're working together to kind of build and maintain that that kind of family structure. Each tribe though has all of its differences, and they're all they can be vastly different. Their politics and their political formats, how spiritual they actually are, or how warlike they actually are versus being peaceful. If they're patriarchal, or if it's matriarchal, or if it's really an even split. How much they like dealing with outsiders or keeping to themselves. Even the tribal variations can even go along the lines of how they look. If it's got a panther head and tiger stripes versus a lion head and stark black fur everywhere with maybe little gray streaks. A big thick muscular tail with a big bushy end on it, or something that's a little thinner and maybe almost rat-like, or certainly more like a house cat. So there's a lot of variation that can be put in, and it really is just this massive role-playing opportunity for anybody who wants to engage in it with their friends, or anybody that they meet and who wants to get in on it. So I think that's awesome. What do you guys, how do you feel about that? Because I feel like that's night and day variation from Dark Elves. Dark Elves, they felt like a very tight-knit group, and there aren't that many of them. Versus Kerrans, they're an ancient race. They've been around for a long, long time, and they're one of the great empires. They're everywhere. They've got so much variation. So you guys, why don't you talk about that for a little bit? Indeed.
Yeah, I said this last week. I think that they're going to give, because elves are elves, just like humans are humans. Now, obviously, character creators are going to give you some variety there, but in the case of if you're a cat race, how do you add variety to that? You give them the ability to kind of look like different types of cats. It makes sense that they would give players that option,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how it's a little bit different from race to race, and how it can be totally different from one to the other. One's a little more hardcore, one's more family-based, and I like that. I like the way it's set up. I wish they had a little more, with the designs and stuff, they had it that they kind of fit a little more like that instead of their basic structures. Why shouldn't the family ones be totally different than the other builds they have? That kind of... I think that should be different, but that's just my own 2 cents.
Well, that's where there is going to be the difference, because there's going to be a lot of things that are correct for the style of what Kerran is. And for the current contest, I feel like a lot of what we're going to be doing is establishing the aesthetic of what Kerran's building along with Combine is going to look like, and maybe some amount of what Kerran's building on their own is going to look like. But I don't think we're necessarily, it's mostly, I think we're going to be looking at what's the starting Kerran area going to look like, and how is it going to look relative to the where it's at in the mega city where everybody starts, which I think is kind of what we're expecting right now, if I'm not mistaken.
So that makes sense then, why they're doing it the way they're doing it then.
Yeah, but there's definitely like all the variation. The upturned roofs, well, there might be some race that actually does those, but I could see Kerrans also doing that, because once again, Kerrans are one of the old races on the world here. So if their style is something that's then influencing and permeating other cultures, I could see that original like upturned curve coming from Kerrans, and then one specific tribe that lived in one specific region next to the ogres or whatever, they had that building style. That was some of the first actually established architecture the ogres on North actually saw. So that was the stuff that they started to emulate with their stuff. Not sure if it's going to be ogres, just using them as an example.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that'd work for like the dark elves and stuff, because I don't see the Kerrans making structures that you could die on.
Right, right. Well, yeah, no. Dark elves and elves in general, they're another one of the old empires, the old races. They would be more one of the ones influencing one of the newer races' aesthetics on their own. But and even the dark elves themselves, technically they're kind of a split. They're being considered a separate race, and in that sense, they're one of the newest races to Norath, because they're basically what happened when you put elves in the Umbralesque and have them survive there for a while. But in the long run, they still believe themselves to be elves, and even the most supreme of elves. So where the whole Dahl Empire is concerned, they see themselves, the Tyrdal, as top dog and part of the old Dahl Empire.
Just so you know, we have a thunderstorm pouring through here right now, so if I suddenly disappear, it's because the power went up.
You got it. I really hope that doesn't happen, because thunderstorms suck.
Yeah. Well, I just saw, like, I have my curtains closed, the blinds down, and I saw a big fat lightning bolt through the window just go off over there. So I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. My cat's already like gone to hide.
if it starts getting a little too gnarly, feel free to duck out and turn your computer off so it doesn't get fried. But yeah, just let us know if you feel like it's getting a little too gnarly out there, because I've had a lot of people I've played with. They're like, yeah, no, I don't take chances with my equipment. I've known too many people that didn't, and lost the system. So made a song about Kerrans. Nice.
Post on YouTube. I want to see it.
Currency is a ball of yarn. So the family system's going to be interesting. Now, they talked about Kerrans being explorers. We knew that. They came from the Kerra Isles. They've spread all throughout the world. They're everywhere, and I'm sure when the ley lines and stuff were opened up and people were starting to open up the portals to the other worlds, if it wasn't elf-only stuff and other races were able to get a piece of that, you can be sure Kerrans were getting a piece of that, because they're explorers. They like checking things out, seeing new stuff. So that's really, really cool. I like that. I like that they're everywhere in the world. There's no place that Kerrans don't belong.
The curious kitties.
Yeah, I'll check that later.
Oh, he did make a video.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's just a link to the musical Cats anyway, but yeah. So, other than Kerrans being explorers, I mean, there's a lot to them. I mean, they have that thing called the Great Hunt, where they'll, I guess, hunt specific big game targets or something. We still don't 100% know what it's going to be, but that should be really interesting. Other than that, they more or less live off the land, which I guess in terms of role-playing a Kerran means you're not really, eating every rabbit and squirrel you come across. You're only taking down the things that you need to, or things that are a threat to the general area. So I could actually see, not necessarily being pacifists, but Kerrans being like, oh, that isn't even a worthy challenge. I'm just gonna let them scurry about and do their own thing. Versus I could see a human being, oh, it's not a human, I can kill it and get points. Because that's what I expect people who play humans to sound like and act like. So what races are you guys going to play while we're on the subject here?
Oh, I've said it repeatedly. Fae.
Fae, that's right. Hopefully there'll be a starting race.
Yeah, hopefully.
I like the Kerran just for the reason why it's a little bit of like a native Indian kind of vibe to them. The way they kind of live off the land, they praise all the earth stuff with the sun, the moon, and the water, and the whole 9 yards. And being an American Indian like myself, I like that. I think it's very cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. The spiritual and naturalist type. They're really like, they couldn't be any more different than the Dark Elves than any other race I think we're gonna see. Like completely, utterly different. Man, that's the written language. The discussion about written language is really an interesting one. This is definitely some discussions that are going on in the forum. So if you're interested in Kerran culture, that's definitely a place to check out. So talking about what the Kerran written language is going to look like, and they're saying maybe claw marks and impressions or otherwise. They actually talked about circles and using circles and things in sets of 4. So I could definitely see like a larger circle with 4 circles inside of it kind of being the general shape of the letter, and how those different curves are kind of cut apart, representing what the different letters are, the different pronunciations of the different characters, plus or minus other variations. Horizontal and vertical line going through it maybe represents something else. There's a lot of different ways that the language could be designed using a kind of limited set of symbols, and it could even just be something that's based on like a letter replacement for English, or even a letter replacement for a different language, and it's just, it gets translated one way or another. Yeah, the idea of them using their claws to write, because it seems like when they're communicating with each other that they would potentially do that. But if they're writing a formal document that other races are going to deal with, or even something that they're planning to have last some amount of time, they would actually scribe that out with a pen or a feather or whatever they're going to write with, or maybe they dip one of their claws in some ink or something if they're a real bureaucratic type. I only write with my pinky claw. And that's what it would sound like too.
Oh yeah, just like that.
Exactly. Circles could be moon phases. Yeah, for sure. Imagine a stylus, a pen with those big paws. Well, it's weird because they're able to grab things and use complex tools. So they've got prehensile, or not prehensile. What's the word I'm looking for the thumb not being opposable thumbs. So they can grab things. They can operate a pen. It would be kind of large. I could see it being something very long and narrow that they're writing with. Chinese use wood. Yeah, wood blocks I could see being used, and pieces of wood. Definitely. I could see them actually having sand. And this is something I've seen a lot of Asian cultures do. You've got sand that you're, actually more drawing in, and then when you're done with the drawing you just kind of mix the sand up, and it's you've kind of cast the image away, and it's impermanence and everything. But I could see the same thing being done with Kerrans, where they've got a big old thing of sand. No, it's not kitty litter. They've got, it's just a very, very shallow surface where they can draw and write and do everything they need to communicate or play whatever sand-based board games that they've designed for themselves.
That's the first thing people are going to see when they see a sand pit, big cat litter box. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yes, I know. That's why it has to be established very, very early on that it's being used for writing. It's not. It has to be a shallow container, not a deep poop catching kitty litter.
That'd be probably more of something inside like the main hut for like all the leaders when they all gather right in the middle, like a circle with sand. It would fit them perfectly.
So that way everybody just thinks the leaders go all meet in the hut to poop together. And then discuss important things. So yeah, the circles and curvy shapes. Now the number 4 being very important, that's something we hadn't heard before, and that's a really big point. I mean, they maybe kind of hinted at it before, but they never really explicitly said the number 4, things being done in 4s, that is part of their style. And it makes sense, and I feel like it's really going to help push the designs going forward. I had tried a little Kerran wall segment or something that I have a really big post going through the middle of it, and I realized after looking through not only the stuff from Castles and Crap Shacks but also the stuff we saw today, a giant post, a giant log going through the very middle of the structure, it doesn't look right. It's A, it's too symmetrical, and B, it doesn't split things up and give it that kind of floatiness towards the top that it needs. It gives it the reinforcement down lower that they like, but you're not really seeing too much of the reinforcement of the inside from the outside.
Yeah, one thing I don't understand with the beams, they said that they don't want to see them perfectly going from one side to the other, and they want them kind of angled. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like they don't want them to be a perfect brace, like building wise, but they'd be like, well, they know how to build though, but they don't care nothing about their stakes they stick through.
Yeah, well. Maybe if we can get like a circle line tool where we can have circles for the ends instead of squares, that would make it a lot easier to do that stuff. Because right now having a cylinder at a slight angle is way more difficult than something squared. Odds, asymmetry. 4 is death or bad luck. Huh, interesting. Well,
I'm not really picking up that they're Asian influenced.
No.
I thought their explanation for why they were into the concept of 4 made a lot of sense for what they seem to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It does make sense because, the 4 elements and that them being naturalist, it definitely makes sense. The 4 phases of the moon, 4 seasons, and all of that sort of stuff. That's the natural kind of 4 that they're looking at, not just this arbitrary mathematical 2 times 2 or 2 plus 2 sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're the spiritual 4, I guess, is the one that we're looking for here.
Circular nature and things coming back around.
Yeah, and that's right. And that was the other thing, cycles and circles. Very important.
Think of it like Battlestar Galactica. This has all happened before, and it will all happen again.
They're doing another Battlestar Galactica reboot? It hasn't. No. It needs like at least another 20 years apart.
Yeah. I was just kidding. I mean, I wasn't, but, I was just saying. I wasn't talking about. Anyway, never mind.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did miss the first 15 minutes. I remember seeing you join the channel, Petrie Plate. I gotcha. Yeah, they cover that stuff. The first 15 minutes definitely covers a lot of the more cultural stuff, and then the other thing they're saying was what was it, the Aviacs from the World Shadowline, that those might be the Kerran's pets. The no, I don't know what the hell is Shadowlion. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, how it's actually spelled, nor an Aviax. I have a pretty good guess of how that's spelled, though. What the hell those two things are, if they're going to have a connection, how they're going to have a connection, I don't know. But I'd imagine anybody who is like a super fan of those particular things is all going crazy over the mention from Steve Danusa that they're going to be a part of the game. What it's actually going to mean for us, I don't know. I don't really see Kerran's writing on giant birds, but maybe. You know, easiest way to be deposited on something on perfect pouncing height.
Go right on their dinner.
Yeah. Or maybe they're going to be remade as like chicken horses to fulfill Terry's desire for chocobos.
Final Fantasy for the win.
Yeah, it is pretty classic. So we saw a lot of awesome builds. The first one that they showed was at Amesley, I think was the name, and it looked like Angkor Wat, which I'll type the pretty awesome looking. I don't know if it was necessarily looking like the Kerran style. It's definitively Asian in style. You know, it's Asian. It's in Asia. Yep. But for the Kerran style, it looked definitely too tight, too rigid. I didn't really have the feeling of like that structure and weight towards the bottom and kind of light and airy towards the top. It felt, you know, it feels like a lot of the same, just getting smaller and smaller and smaller as it goes up. Hey, Shag. So that's you know, definitely an awesome build to check out, and an awesome place to look at the pictures of it, because it's pretty amazing. But definitely not the Kerran style. Ainsley's build, the one that looks like Angkor Wat.
Yeah, it looked too pagoda-like.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm talking. Yeah.
It was, I think,
that was one of the first ones.
Yeah. Now, one of the really awesome things that we saw people doing, and it's been repeated multiple times over, the LaForge Kerran build. Go for it, Shag. The irregular lengths of wood planks and irregular lengths of the posts coming out, the spars coming through the buildings, and even irregular widths, they've said, is really good. It's definitely, I saw a lot of people using minor voxelmancy to create the planks that are separated from one another, instead of using connected wood material and then just kind of cutting the ends off. So that was definitely a really good touch. Oh, thank you, Shag. I'll check that out. And that's actually, damn, that's pretty nice looking there. And it looks like it has some of that variation on it too, the differential lengths for some of the boards there. So that's you know, that's definitely looking like the Kerran style. Now, the one thing I would say about this image, though, of the two, the one on the one we see on the left there. Oh no, Chip! He'll be back. The one that we see on the left is maybe a little bit more brickworked than what they're looking for. Up to where we see kind of the separation from the very base foundation to the kind of middle section of brick. That part definitely at the bottom looks fine as brick, but above that separation, it seems like plaster is more the preferred material, either plaster or sandstone. So that's, and that was one of the things they said, is that stonemasonry isn't actually something that the Kerrans are really heavy on. They don't really pride themselves on being, you know, master brick makers. It isn't something they really spend a lot of time on. So the well-cut bricks and stones like that you're probably not going to see as much of. Inlays, especially wood inlays, or inlay of stone or metal or something into wood, that's definitely more of their stuff. Need more workspace? Oh yeah, I bet, Cody. I mean, you're using a lot of your space there, though.
His bridge he made looked pretty nice.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. But that was one of the things they had mentioned, the thatched roof, and I was kind of feeling that the entire time during Castles and Crap Shacks. They definitely said we're not going with the grass hut look from I think it was EverQuest 1, but we're going for more of that refined civilized kind of look. So that's why when I saw all of the thatched roofs everywhere, I was thinking, well, it looks great, but I don't know if the SOE team is actually looking for it, and I didn't really want to say it too much during Castles and Crap Shacks, but they said a wood roof is what they want, not a thatched roof. They weren't as happy with the thatched roof. Not that it's that it doesn't look good. It's just it isn't what they're looking for this iteration of Kerrans at this time.
And there was a lot of that this week. There was a lot of, this is nice, but not the direction we want to go. You know, for this race.
Yeah, and that's fine. This is the first week.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we'll see over the coming weeks. Hopefully, people hone in on what they're looking for.
Yeah. Oh, they will.
Oh yeah.
Look how many people already jumped on it already. It's crazy how many bitches they had. That was insane. And they went through all of them. That was cool. They went through all of them.
Yeah. And those are only the people that posted them. I know there's tons of people that didn't. Was Tenma stuff in there? I can't even remember.
I don't know. I didn't hear his name, but I stepped away for a couple minutes too, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if his stuff was. I don't think he put up pictures of his stuff. I'm really interested to seeing it though.
He probably won't until he knows it's done, though.
Or just there's enough pictures up there to get feedback. They gave so much good feedback. And let me continue going through that stuff. So like I said, the irregular lengths, the irregular widths, the irregular thicknesses, even that's a big deal. Your Camp in the Ruins wasn't in it? Oh, I didn't even. Do you want to post a picture of it? I'd love to see that. Definitely doing variations, having it look like they got close with the wood, and it's like, well, is the rod at least 3 meters long? Okay, it's 3.5 meters. That means it's at least 3 meters. I don't need to work on this piece. I'm going to work on the next piece, and that's probably more of their working process. Is they'll work on a piece of wood until it's got the proportions they need, that they can put it down and move to the next piece. Not necessarily for their fine detail stuff, but certainly for walkways and structural posts and stuff like that. Things that are just functional. They're going to be pretty sturdy. You just need to give them a bit of shaping. So having some planks that are a little thicker, not just wider or longer, is definitely good variation. And if you're creating your own planks, there's definitely the option to use the natural wood material rather than the wood plank material, so that way you don't have these artificial kind of wood strips kind of built into a solid wood plank. And they'd also said the darker woods are definitely more of the major structural sorts of things, and the lighter woods seem like they're more being used for the detail. So I guess keep that in mind. The burled wood is definitely a pretty solid choice for the structural stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to, because that's when I first saw that. I'm looking for a particular kind of image to dig up here. When I saw the initial blueprint idea for the Kerran structure, that's what I had imagined was dark wood, almost Polynesian, that would be polished, and I'm kind of glad to hear that they decided that was what they were looking for. Let me see here. These are all tiki huts.
I mean,
tiki
it makes
heads.
sense because they want to contrast it with the light plaster and the lighter building materials.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like all the materials we use for the Dark Elf stuff, we are absolutely not using. Two Venn diagrams that do not overlap. Because the Dark Elf stuff, it was all stone, and the stuff that wasn't stone, there was some metal stuff. The Kerrans don't really use too much metal. I saw actually a set of wooden boards. They were irregular lengths, but there was a metal stripe going across at a specific level, going in a straight line across them, and that looked like the piece of metal they used to kind of band it all together and keep it together. So limited use of metal definitely makes sense, but making large pieces out of metal or making large decorations out of metal, other than something kind of foil-like for inlays, I don't really see them doing that too much. The metal caps on the ends of the spars and the gold, actually silver spikes, I should say, on some of the spars could also work, but silver is also something that they were talking about. Use silver, don't use gold.
Cool metals.
Yeah, because we're using warm earth tones. They want to contrast that with cooler stone and metal materials. Yeah, metal for structure, not really there. Yeah, just as accent. For the most part. It's not, they're not gonna, I don't imagine they're even using really heavy nails or anything. You like tungsten over silver? That actually makes sense. Iron, yeah. I'm wondering if mithril could be used in limited quantity, maybe just for the end caps to give them kind of a mysterious glow to them.
I think mithril's probably going to be a dwarf thing. I think I saw someone in chat during the live stream say tin or silver, and I know some people are saying silver now. Because those go nicely with wood.
They need to give us a prop for like rope.
Yeah, rope is definitely.
You figure they'd build a lot with a rope tying things together. You'd figure for their kind of society.
Yeah, it seems like they would use a lot of rope and like leather straps and rawhide and stuff to bind everything together. So yeah, not that they couldn't use nails and make something with metal and hammer it out sheet metal and stuff. It's just not their style. The spiritual aspect of it too. They aren't really looking to use that sort of stuff. They prefer I'm sure even for maybe spellcaster purposes, prefer more of the natural materials, so that way there isn't, I guess, the ability to use magics that would draw upon heavily metal-based infrastructure, whatever those may be. I guess I'm saying that based on the lore, because it seemed like every time Corlin was going to cast a spell, he was drawing something from nature that was relative to that spell. If it was a poison spell, he'd be drawing from the corpses around and using that putrefaction. If it was a fire spell, he'd use all the torches and candles and stuff throughout a building to fuel the flames. So I would imagine maybe some sort of even magnetic or geomancer style magic or something would be easier to perform using metal rather than so there might be builds. So I could definitely see that being something that they would want to consider one way or another, or how that might actually influence their ability to do other tasks, because metal is not necessarily something they work with as much. Yeah, ropes also allow them to dismantle and build up, because there is not necessarily the structures are temporary, but there's a lot of stuff that it seems like they could salvage it and just bring it somewhere else and move on if they need to.
Yeah, Cody Minet's asking tin. He seemed confused by why I would suggest that. Just because I don't get the impression the Kerran are going to be like heavily into mining metals, and tin is soft like silver, easy to manipulate, etc., etc. Also, probably easier for them to find, I would presume, but it was more of the silver color that I was thinking of than anything else. But
right.
They don't strike me as folks that are going to put up a big gold statue of something.
Silver.
What I mean? I don't even think that they would necessarily put up. I could see them using silver for accents and trim, and and silverware or pottery or dishes or whatever they you end up adding there. I could see in those cases them kind of relying on those. But yeah, I think the real predominant element of all their buildings is the wood, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, wood is definitely their focus. I'm wondering if we're going to see a painted or dyed wood at some point. Or wood with kind of a finish on it.
Gotcha, Cody. He's saying no. He was suggesting it at the same time I had brought it up. Gotcha, Cody. Gotcha.
Funny. Okay. Now, one of the things we saw with a lot of the builds, and we kind of talked about it last week, maybe the height of Kerran structures being about a third to a half the size of a claim. We were wrong. I was kind of thinking maybe taller, and kind of taller is actually really taller. Build Kerran structures tall. Build them very tall. Use that claim height. Use that claim height and then make them smaller in the base if they're going to be eye level with one another. But definitely build them up very, very high.
Yeah, at least one to top of the claim. Then work your way down like steps.
Yep.
One of them that they showed, that looks like it was like 2 claims high. One of them.
Yeah, potentially. It would make sense. They just so long as it's got the stability. Now, that's one of the big things I saw. The open air down below, unless it's actually stuck in the water, doesn't really seem like their style. They like a lot of structure, a lot of reinforcement. They like things being sturdy down below and then getting lighter and more kind of airy towards the top. So if you're going to use bricks or stones in the build, it's definitely in the foundation. It's not in the kind of that mid-plaster wall that we saw with a lot of them we see in the concept art, and most definitely not at the top. Unless it's maybe a stone that's tied to a rock hanging off the end of one of the wood spars, just decoratively. Maybe the person really likes that rock. Maybe that rock saved them or has some other significance. But that's the use of rocks and bricks is something you're not going to see a lot above the kind of foundation level with the Kerran builds.
Yeah, again, like I said, I've said it last week, and I think I said it the week before. Really look, if you have a cat at home, you know how cats behave. You know what they like. That definitely seems to be a lot of the inspiration for what they're doing. Cats like to be up high. Cats like to be able to see everything. Mm-hmm. Cats don't like it when you sneak up on them, and that's why they tend to position themselves in places where they can survey everything and feel secure. And so that kind of goes hand in hand with what they're doing with the Kerran, architecture.
Big cat house.
Yeah,
exactly. A big giant cat house. Wait a minute. I saw that show on HBO.
He goes
Never
there.
mind. Yeah. Never mind.
Anyway.
I had a beer.
One beer.
One beer.
Oh, dude, I am not a drinker. So
that's fine.
I'm getting my money's worth out of this Heineken, trust me.
Yeah. Someone was saying something about dark elf mead in the workshop chat, and I was thinking to myself, no, the dark elves are the opposite of beekeepers. They would have terrible mead. They don't know what to do with honey. They're dark elves.
Yeah, I would think dark elves would be more of a wine culture.
Or like the what was it, the Klingons that had the blood wine? I don't know how that worked, if that was like the fermented blood of their enemies, or if it was just
I think
something spiked with some blood.
Quite that gory, but
it would be awesome though. I mean, that if that was the sort of thing it was, if it's like the fermented blood of their enemies, I could see that being a Kerran drink. So
catnip surprise.
Yeah, catnip surprise. There you go. Now the other thing I was thinking of is with the foundations, the hourglass shape is something that they said to avoid. When the foundation stops being the foundation and starts being the detailed wood parts where they're actually living and hanging out, it's definitely, you're not using stone at that point. You're transitioning from plaster to wood towards the top there. But down lower, it's okay to have the walls taper. It can be kind of a steep taper. It's just going to have to start really wide, but really more of a narrow taper. A really narrow taper up is, it seems like, a very big part, not just for the base, but for the entire aesthetic. So long as it doesn't flare out, you can have kind of a yeah, I saw that, Chitari.
Kind of like this. Kind of think like this.
Yeah, exactly. So
not like this, but at a slight angle.
Right, exactly. So that's what you're kind of looking for. It can be, it could go straight up, but doesn't necessarily have to. It seems like they want a little bit of angle on it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of sort of English, and that way it's because straight up and down structures are going to be human. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or at least I'm guessing.
It's like a tree stump. They're saying like a tree stump design.
Yeah. Now I could see potentially a curve like this being done. You guys will see it on the screen in just a moment, where it's flat at the top and it goes straight down from there, but then it kind of curves and flares out as it gets towards the bottom. So that way it doesn't do an hourglass, but it's just kind of giving a little bit of that extra curve as it kind of flares out towards the bottom, and then that can actually be used to kind of blend it with the ground, because that's another point.
Back. Continue without me.
Okie dokie. Because there's another point we haven't seen, I guess, as much of that yet, is the structures being built in such a way that they look like they belong in that place in nature, rather than that the area was flattened out first and then built up from there. Sort of the dimension and slope. Yeah, like the Washington Monument.
I wish you could use like the trees that we got in the game. You could make them really big.
Yeah.
I wish we could like template just the base of it and use it as like the structure for their home. Like cut the whole top of the tree off and just use the bottom base.
Yeah.
So you don't gotta build it yourself. That'd be perfect, I think.
I saw somebody actually use the roots of giant trees as the thing kind of holding up. I think it was Pride Rock. I can't remember the name of the
they flipped upside down?
Yeah, they used 4 trees upside down, scaled up as the base of it. It definitely looks like a mystical Kerran temple. It doesn't look like it was done in the classic Kerran style. It looks Kerran to some extent, but at the same time, I mean, in a lot of ways, big old jaw on it. Defense, that was you, wasn't it? Yeah. It's definitely it's not Kerran in the having the foundation they're looking for. It is Kerran in the sculptures, the use of lattice. I really like the way the water flows through it. There's some beds just kind of floating off. It's got a lot of really awesome stuff to it. But you can see like the using the overturn or the upside down trees scaled up for the base. It's not necessarily. It's really not what they're looking for actually for the style for the workshop. That doesn't mean it doesn't belong. That doesn't mean that specific thing couldn't be a temple somewhere in EverQuest Next. It probably should actually. But
yeah, I agree. It should be.
In the context of the style guide, it's amazing. It's got a lot of stuff from the style guide, but that's not. I wish that was the kind of foundation they're using. But that's probably going to be reserved for a different race. Oh, thanks, Com. I should probably be keeping these links to post with the video afterward, huh? Oh yeah, I saw that. Okay, so I'm gonna actually keep on talking here. I'll check through some of those pictures later. So yeah, the upturned corners, those are for future races. They had said avoid something that looks like the missions in the West Coast. Those Tau-style buildings, and I think that's a city in Mexico. But definitely a tall building is what they want. They want, the stone masonry to be, or the stonework and all the plaster and stuff to help get the building tall, and then once it's as tall as you want it to be, then you start building the fine detail and the hangout space and the living space and the lookout points. That definitely seems like how the Kerrans are intended to be built right now.
I can see them later down the road asking for other stuff though, because you gotta figure they said there's going to be like different kind of builds, and that's just what they're looking for now. So I could see something like with the trees upside down being like a one for the mythical people, because they're going to have people that are mythical. It just kind of fits in the whole thing too, you know.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be living in a regular house like the rest of them. They're going to be living in something totally different.
This is true. Welcome back.
Yes.
How's the storm going there?
Yeah, it seems to have stopped. It's going to be on and off all night, so.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Nope, power will go out as soon as we're done, and then I'll have nothing to do all night.
Oh, you can play with the cat.
Yeah.
Catamaran. That what was it? Exasperating Steve Denuser. That is pretty funny. I don't know if you guys caught that part.
Yeah.
That was quite funny. So yes, the ships. The design of the ships seems like, and this was kind of, I think, a bigger version of the one we saw during Castles and Crab Shacks. It's kind of a flatter ship. Got a one mast coming out the middle. It's got these kind of curved, like rib cage looking structure going over the top. It's kind of where you're going to be hanging out and something to hold on to when things get kind of wild. And it's got these two kind of floaty buoy looking things, the floaty things. I can't remember what they're called on a boat, but kind of out to the sides. It definitely seems like more of a shallow water sort of boat. It doesn't seem like they're really necessarily going that far out to sea with it.
Pontoons.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, so that's, I really like the aesthetic for the boats. They look great. I definitely want to see more with it. Yep, the vents, that's right.
Yeah, it looks more like a fishing boat. They use it more for fishing than anything else.
Yeah.
The way it's designed.
Yeah, it looks really stable. Outriggers, that might be right too. Like I said, I don't get nautical. Last time I tried to get nautical, I confused my professors. That was when I was doing 3D animation. Alright. Oh, and the wave pattern is also really important. That wave pattern, it's kind of the half circle with like a circle with the top cut off, and you've got the bottom half of the circle left, just stacked one after the other. That's kind of giving that wave pattern. And in fact, if you layer those and you've got different shapes of that curve kind of interweaving between each other, you could get some really awesome multi-layered kind of wave looks going on, which I think would be really awesome for the Kerran style. But definitely make sure you keep it reserved, because the amount of detail they would do with stone versus the amount of detail they would do with wood, it seems like the sort of stuff they would do more with wood, but they would keep it to a certain limit. Try to make the boats look like that. Nice shag. Let's see it. Oh yeah, I saw somebody that made wasn't boats like the sails made with water to make them look like they're kind of flowing and flapping a little bit. That was pretty cool. I don't remember if that was this week or last week and where I saw it, but I did see it and it's pretty cool. Might have just been on Twitter. Anyway, I'm just kind of, well, ranting is part of the show. The definitely independent planks are preferred over large chunks of wood. So get into that micro and macro shape voxelmancy, because that's definitely going to be important to giving that definition to the build. Gradual transition from thick to thin pieces of wood. You can't go from a giant 2-foot thick tree trunk, or that tree trunk then being used to make a like the frame of a window, to itty bitty thin lattice. There needs to be something, either a transition of detail getting you from one to the next. Yeah, the wave can be asymmetrical too, though. Yes, macro voxels. The transition from the thick wood to the thinner detailed wood needs to have something getting you from point A to point B. That could be as little as like a metal accent, or you know, some amount of plaster kind of in between the two, or something. It could be using a different type of wood just to kind of line the connection point. There's a lot of different ways, but they said definitely you can't have, you know, big thick chunk of wood and tiny detailed lattice right next to it. There needs to be some transition of the weighting, especially if it's the exact same kind of wood. Okay, continuing along. Avoid a central spar support log. We didn't see any of those. You can't just have one single giant log going through the middle of the building. There might be ways to make it work, but we didn't really see anybody doing it, and I've tried it. I don't think it really works. It doesn't really give the same kind of openness that they're looking for.
Yeah, they want the floors totally open where they can walk around comfortably.
Yeah. Logs. Yeah, heavy bases.
Again, open. You know, they want to be able to see out, you know, and everything at all times, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So yeah, like I was saying earlier, the bases, they should be heavy. They should use the stone and the plastery materials. Those should be the things that make the building tall. You can even have spars going through the plaster part of it. It doesn't just have to be through the wood stuff. In fact, the spars going through the plaster part makes a lot of sense, because that's internally where you're going to have various staircases and storage space and such. Sharp-looking stone pavers. I think that was the stone pavers that had that really sharp-looking texture that Rosie didn't seem was quite natural enough. It seemed maybe a little too aggressive, I think she said. So definitely, if that's the one I'm thinking of, is the pavers material that had that very jagged kind of look, like a lot of corners and stuff. That's probably the one to avoid, instead using the smoother worked stone material that looked like a bunch of kind of rounder stones set together. That seems a little bit more of the Kerran style. What do you guys think?
What we actually need is a new one that actually shows kind of like the old style walls they used to build back like the 1700s. They did rock by rock, building the stone walls, having like a design like that we can build with. That'd be probably more of their style. It looks like they actually placed all the rocks up and they actually built their base that way.
Yeah, and I tried doing that. You got to do it with props, and you got to really be patient and use a lot of them to make them look interconnected, and not having them clip in a weird way.
Yeah, and to do that, it actually cause major lag issues too, and then it wouldn't get accepted either for their stuff.
Right.
They don't want a lot of props.
Right. So
they have to give us a new tool or a new paint to actually make them look like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They I agree with you there, and actually they should probably give us a few different versions. Maybe one that's got like some kind of mossy sections to it too, to make it look like it's been there for a little bit. Maybe one that more looks like it was done with sandstone a little bit, instead of just whatever feldspar, whatever they'd be using to make the plaster. Did not agree with him, said about not using torches. Well, it's really tough. If we could make that level of detail with the lattices or with the voxels, then that'd be great, but it's really tough to get things that tight. It'd be nice if they gave us a lattice material, a lattice prop actually to work with, different sizes of it, so we can use them for the specificity that we need.
You have to go hit the forums and start telling them all the new props that we want.
Yeah, actually it's Reddit. The post at the top of the landmark Reddit is where we're supposed to tell them what props and materials we want. So like rope is another one that, you know,
yep,
It's been discussed a lot. They said a lot of fabrics and stuff. Well, we need fabric materials too, so we aren't just restricted to props. A-frames, we talked about that. Avoid really tall A-frames, unless it's something where the hollow part of the frame is going to be stuck in the water. They definitely, it's either going to be solid and sturdy built up, or no, it's going to be solid and sturdy built up. They don't have low windows. All of their windows and all of their lookout points are higher up, so you can't just scurry in from below. And it seems like from what we've seen, it's a lot higher up. It's not just a little ways. It's like at least a minimum of a third of a claim height, I think, before you'd start seeing the first Kerran windows. The open air part should definitely be well above ground level. Everything definitely needs to feel supported and not top heavy. It needs to feel sturdy lower down and as you go up. But when you get to the top, the roof itself can't look like it's just as heavy as the foundation. It definitely needs to feel a little bit lighter. Using the wood should help with that because you're working with the stone and the plaster below. We already talked about irregular sizes of things. Asymmetry is actually a really good thing. And the stucco is actually really useful for cutting really heavy detail. If you've got a lot of really busy woodwork, like we saw with I think it was Fugazi's build, they're saying using a little bit more plaster can actually help to cut that. So the plaster can be used kind of in a transition to the high detail areas, but I would say there's definitely a point where the plaster stops and you're just building from wood up from there. Where you determine that point is kind of up to you in the build. Kerran gnome relations.
Well, it was a joke about crossbreeds.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seemed like a
mini kitty.
Yeah, it was Hawk Ear, I believe, was the name that had the cat-shaped building. And when I saw it, it's like, oh, that looks like something a gnome would build. And maybe dark elves that are friends of that gnome would help them out with the process, because it also had some kind of heavy stone and angular look to it.
And that's one thing I can't understand. They showed a statue, and they're talking about how to make it better and stuff, but the statue is made all of stone. They said they're not stone carvers, so why would they have a big stone statue in their city? Wouldn't it be made of wood or something of that sort?
I would imagine it would be made of wood and then painted with like a black paint or whatever the colors of the person they're representing would actually be. Hannah in game. Okay, so we saw Firel was the name of the person who made some really awesome lattices. They like a lot of different lattices. Jenbura was the name of the person who built a really, really tall. That was the one that maybe looked 2 claims high, and that tall is good. Rosie definitely emphasizes that. Tall is good. Make it big. Make it huge. Also, she referred to windows as window holes, which is hilarious. No, windows are holes, which, she realized a little bit later.
Well, again, I think, she was, thinking in her head, they don't actually have windows over their, windows. They're just
holes cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah, cut out, sculpted out. So I think that's what she was, conflated the idea in her head, and it kind of came out window holes.
Yeah. So we already talked about the dark woods with the stucco, and then using the light wood for the detail, especially for inlays. Especially those using the light wood as an inlay in the dark wood looks great. We saw it in Cody's the structures, the wooden posts that they were inlaid in that. They looked great. Yeah, heavy lower, lighter higher up. Kind of talked about that. Like I said, I probably wrote some stuff in duplicate, and there's probably more duplicate as we go on here. the voxel-shaped tiles for tiled roofs are a huge plus. If you can actually make your own custom voxel tiles that you're using for the roof, that's big time. They like that. They like that a lot. Fugazi actually, I believe, had dull copper that they were using as the tiles, and it looked fantastic. It blended really, really well with the rest of it, with the wood and the plaster. I didn't even realize it was copper until I used the material checker. And they're saying that definitely whimsically tall and irregular. Like whimsically, not, you know, serious, but something that kind of looks funny, and maybe it's got a little bit of angling, a little bit of quirkiness and nuance to it. Work on still work in progress. Alright. Give you what? You want some window holes or something, Shag? I can make window holes pretty easily, actually. It's I think one of my specialties.
Elite.
Yeah. I can't make fine detailed ones, but I can definitely make them. Yeah, and the less metal work, you know, just in general, using less metal, not just on the accents, not just in the architecture, but everything. It's a very limited, reserved amount of metal that you're going to be using. Oh, the roof tiles. Yeah, I don't have those kind of roof tiles designed for myself yet. Ask Fugazid. I bet he'd be willing to help you out. Or maybe not. Maybe he'll say, screw you! Make your own! Here's a tutorial. I'm sure there are tutorials. I bet Sog actually has a really good tutorial. Probably Tenma as well. There's a lot of good tutorial makers out there. A lot of them. It's really cool. Painted wood is, I think I talked about it earlier. That's definitely something I'd really like to see. I don't know how it would look different than like a metal or, you know, something else, but I really think that would give us a lot more detail, like a natural kind of green look, especially. A natural green and a natural blue would be two great wood materials to be able to work with.
And society like they have, they would actually be using like berries or whatever they could find to actually color their wood.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why you can't blue for blueberries and like raspberries they'd be using to color their wood, because that's what they used to do a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what their society would be, is whatever they can get their hands on, they'll use.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different cultures that have done things in different ways. Maybe they actually do things kind of splitting the difference between woodwork and it was, I think, the ancient Romans that actually were the first to do this. They would use the crushed up minerals mixed in wax and use that as the paint, and it gave this very lifelike look to the statues. All the statues we see today, they don't really have that, except maybe little bits and fragments that are embedded. But back when a lot of those statues were first made, they were done in this beautiful detail with this beautiful waxy paint, and they look lifelike because instead of normal paint where it's just reflecting off like a sheen, oh, Egyptians, that could be, instead of reflecting off like a paint, it actually had a actually it was the Greeks, I believe, that really did it first. That subsurface scattering, when you shine a light on your hand versus on a piece of metal, the light's not going to be, you know, brightly reflecting off of your hand. It's going to kind of absorb around a little bit and come out diffused, and that was the look that they were able to get with the that kind of waxy painting over stone. Now I'm saying the Kerrans would do it, but they would do it over wood. They would carve it out in wood and then do the similar sort of thing, crushing up the minerals in a waxy sort of material and then using that to paint it, and then being able to really get fine fur-like detail on their sculptures that way, where stone might not necessarily be able to hold it the same way or work with it the same way. Egyptians, lapis lazuli. Okay, you definitely might. That part of history, I remember a lot of art history except the dates. The dates was the part that I'm like, screw that, it's just a bunch of numbers. Just let me know the knowledge.
Look at that. Learned something new today.
Cool deal.
Exactly. Entertaining and educational.
Indeed.
Ta-da!
So we already kind of talked about the wait, which page am I on here? No, that's the first page. We already talked about the cooler metals and stone being used to contrast the earth tones. Another material you can use for inlays, and it'd actually be really interesting. I don't know if it would be necessarily the Kerran style or not, but if it's something magical in Kerran, using water as the material for your inlays. We saw that structure with the water bubbles being held in place, and that looked great. Cool. I thought that was awesome. That's so smart.
And they liked it.
Oh yeah.
that would actually be kind of a mythical one too.
Yeah, I bet Dark Elves are like, man, why didn't we have that? All of our stuff's all square. We don't even have any awesome like water globes anywhere.
Nope, just spikes to die on.
Yeah. Oh, you're hilarious, Shag. There's a line from The Big Lebowski that I will not say right now, but is very relevant to the situation. When Walter's being told he's living in the past. Anyway, the elaborate carvings definitely should not be everywhere. It seems like not only, you know, either the kind of those trim layers as you're going up seem like good places to have them, but it doesn't seem like every spar and every log and every plank and every chunk of wood is going to be detailed. That seems like that'd be totally overkill for Kerrans, and it'd probably be very uncomfortable to them because they like the look of the natural material. They definitely like that star shape and those crescent shapes and those curvy shapes, but at the end of the day, you know, if they want to go scratch a wooden post with their claws, they're going to scratch a wooden post with their claws. Okay, maybe they're not going to destroy their own homes like that just to sharpen their claws, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Scratching post, center of town.
Yeah, for sure. That's what that structure on the very left side of the first concept art image is. It's that thing with those little sails on top or whatever. It's just a big scratching post. That's all. Not much stonework or brickwork. We already talked about that. Lamps hanging. That strand with the lamps hanging along the rope looked good. So that style of using ropes to connect from one place to another, or just having lamps and lanterns just dangling off of a rope tied to something, that's definitely in their style. See them doodling in the pillars while lounging? That's true. They did talk about wanting to see pictography, somebody making something that represents Kerran history and using that for inlays. That seems like about the most detailed inlay I would expect to see, and it seems like that'd be a large inlay going around one part of a larger building, but it's just isolated to that one area. Those inlays wouldn't be all over the building.
Like old American Indian paintings and stuff, drawings in caves.
Yeah.
Stuff of that sort.
Yeah, for sure. And we're getting close to the end here, so I am gonna just go down the list here because I still got almost half a page. Oh, laundry lines, they hang their stuff out to dry. Roofs shaped like, if you take that 4-pointed star and you cut the bottom half off and use the top half for the roof, that looks really good for Kerrans. That's definitely, if you're having a hard time figuring out what you want to do for the roof, just make the 4-pointed star, cut off the bottom half, and you've got your roof. So that's pretty cool. It's a real easy default to go with, and if you can do it where it's not just going across in one direction, but it actually intersects as like a 4-way kind of inverse arch kind of thing, could look pretty cool. Variations on the 4-way star are definitely welcome. We saw a lot of those, a lot of experimentation. Great stuff. Putting extra ends, having the star in the middle and different bevels and stuff on the outside, or having the star shape on the outside but doing a different inlay or a different cut in the middle. Having the star as a hollow object that you use it structurally, have a line of them, so when you walk by you're looking through them. That's definitely something that they like. Rotatable templates, yeah. Okie dokie. We already talked about it being a trapezoid. So yeah, a trapezoid is really the word I meant to say for the shape of the base.
That's I was trying to think of the word earlier myself.
A very, very tall trapezoid, but a trapezoid nonetheless. That's what we're looking for. If you have a roof overlapping another roof, like imagine, you know, they had the one with the V shape and then another V shape kind of piece on top of it. That looked really good, and they said definitely, you know, mess around with that sort of stuff. I could see that being done too if you've got a not necessarily a fireplace below, but if you've got maybe a cooking pit below, you want to have it be able to vent out. So instead of being a completely solid roof, you've got it kind of going up most of the way, and then the next roof segment above that is kind of the chute where the smoke will kind of billow out from. So something to mess with. Round towers. We didn't see very many round towers. Now they said we wouldn't see 100% round towers in a Kerran city. I say that's bogus because that might be that tribe's specific style. But for the most part, you shouldn't expect to see cities that are all round towers. You're going to see a lot of them that are square, maybe some that are square and kind of rounded towards the corners. But we did see one round tower. Looked kind of cool. Don't use crenellation. Oh, what was that?
That was a tall one.
Yeah, it was. Round. Yeah. Don't use a crenellation pattern. Use a wave pattern instead. And the stairs, I feel like, are really, once again, more for the humans, more for the smaller races. Kerrans, they'll find their way up. They'll just jump from spar to spar, I'm guessing. Just climb the big old logs on the outside to get up. They're big cats. They like things like that. And on that note, I have just been talking for the most part for the past 30 minutes, I feel like. We've got like a minute to wrap up here. So is there any last thoughts you guys had real quick? Real quick?
I would suggest that builders try not to reinvent the style guide and work within it.
I agree.
That would be my advice. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Plus the feedback we got today.
Yeah,
we got a lot of feedback today. By the feedback, we should see some really nice stuff next week, I'm guessing. Yeah. I guarantee a lot of people are going to fix their old stuff and going to see a lot of it fixed. And the ones that just don't want to do it that way, then...
And that's cool. And those folks should, that's cool. Those folks should continue to do what they... I think maybe in some of those cases it was, this is what I was building. I'm just going to throw it in to see what happens. You know, I mean, I can't believe...
Oh, no.
Thinking it was going to be a Kerran thing, you know. I mean, you know.
My internet whacked out there for just a second.
At least it wasn't just me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's it for the show, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Y'all have been seeing our information tick by at the bottom here. I'm Legendary Neurotoxin. My screen right is Adam, and my screen left is ChipGM. You can find him anywhere as ChipGM all over the place. He's pretty consistent with that. Adam is also pretty consistent, but of course, if you missed any of this stuff, you can just look right through the video and watch the stuff scrolling by. It's not that hard to find. Anyway, that's it for the show. We are running out of time. Thank both of you for coming. Chip, you are awesome. Thank you for having you on. Adam, I hope things go well with that storm there. I hope things are all right with your electricity and doesn't just go out right now. We are going to do a giveaway, and we're going to do a raid as soon as the show cuts here. So I will see you folks later.